Let's start with food because that's the one that seems to be the most confusing to people. I noticed that your book was recommended by Dr. Will Bolshevitz, and he's the fiber king. He's been on our show several times. He wrote the excellent books Fiber Fueled and the Fiber Fueled Cookbook. So congratulations on getting a thumbs up from him. You talked a lot about refined carbohydrates, but you didn't say carbohydrates. Most people think we just have to avoid carbohydrates if we want to manage our blood sugar. Where does fiber, since Dr. V talks so highly of your book, where does fiber come in here?
Yeah, so fiber is a type of carbohydrate that we actually don't digest and absorb in our main GI tract. We actually ferment it in our colon. But the beauty of fiber is that because we don't digest it, we don't have that enzyme to digest it, it actually has so many health benefits to us, especially with type 2 diabetes. So fiber is found in basically every single plant-based food. It's found in all plant-based food and it's void. Animal products have zero fiber. The benefits of fiber, number one, it really helps to control blood sugar. So because you're unable to really absorb and break down fiber, it doesn't cause a spike in blood sugar in a way that other carbohydrates can do. The way I like to explain it is think of it kind of like a shield, right? It's kind of shielding the absorption of the other nutrients in the food going into your bloodstream. So it really makes things slow down. So if you have high fiber meals, you're going to have less of a blood sugar spike. Second of all, it protects our heart. So fiber is so great at taking cholesterol, lowering triglycerides, and helping us reduce our risk of heart disease. And people with diabetes do face a much greater risk of heart complications. It also really helps us maintain healthy bowel movements, right? It cleans our digestive tract because it goes through our whole GI system. And there it's fermented by the gut bacteria, which also leads to so many great benefits as well. And then lastly, like a huge win for fiber is that it keeps us full and it really helps us maintain a healthy weight. Since it can't be digested and it goes down through our stomach so slowly, we get that sensation of fullness for longer. So with refined carbs, which lack that fiber, a lot of the times you find yourself hungry very shortly after eating these processed refined carbs. However, if you're eating foods full of fiber, you are going to be satiated for longer and you're not going to be eating as much. Therefore, it helps you maintain a healthy body weight a lot more easily. So we're big fans of fiber.
So what is the overall, when you talk about sugar spikes, and it sounds like spiking sugar is bad for you, not just in the moment, but maybe long term. Am I hearing you correctly? Why does it matter if there's a spike, et cetera?
That's a great question. It's very normal to experience a spike, a blood sugar. Maybe spike isn't the best word. Let's say a rise in blood sugar after eating carbohydrates. And that is a completely normal physiological response. When we eat carbohydrates, they're broken down into glucose. It's a simple form of carbohydrate. And glucose is then able to enter our bloodstream. And of course, by adding glucose to our bloodstream, glucose is going to go up a little bit, right? And that's when our pancreas receives the signal to release insulin. And then insulin, like we mentioned before, unlocks the cells. The glucose can get out of our bloodstream and into the cells where the cells use it for energy. So it's very normal to experience a rise in blood sugar after eating carbohydrates. What we want to avoid with people who have insulin resistance is they do experience abnormal blood sugar rises or spikes in this case. And it does go, a lot of times it does go beyond the normal levels that we want. The more blood sugar that we have in our bloodstream, the more insulin that needs to be released by our pancreas. And over time, this can be a problem, especially if we're not doing anything to reverse the insulin resistance, because then our pancreas has to continue to work harder and harder and harder, release more and more insulin. And sometimes if nothing is done to prevent this over time, the cells that are producing insulin can burn out and can die. And then that leads to some other major issues, as including yes, Jose, you want to jump in?
I just want to piggyback from what you were mentioning. As you can tell, Alexandra, the pathophysiology behind insulin resistance is complicated, right? And that confuses people because when they are already insulin resistant and they eat, let's say, a banana or a potato, which we know are healthy, complex, whole carbohydrates, their blood sugar is going to rise, right? So they put one and one together. They're like, okay, bananas equals spikes, hence bananas are bad. Hence fruits as a whole are bad. And then that is when the mix-up in avoiding all carbohydrates start. They say, oh, all carbohydrates are the evil. I cannot go ahead and eat carbohydrates for the rest of my life. And they start avoiding the healthful carbohydrates, the ones that are full of fiber, like the fruits, the vegetables, the whole grains. And I understand why people are confused. Again, the pathophysiology is complicated, but a banana never gave anybody type 2 diabetes. The reason why you're spiking up after eating a banana is not due to the fructose and the fiber in the banana. It's due to the insulin resistance at a cellular level that has developed over multiple years of eating a diet that has been high in saturated fat, high in refined carbohydrates, an excess of calories, not enough physical activity. And that is what led to you becoming intolerant to healthy carbohydrates, right? So the premise behind our method is to reduce the amount of those unhealthy foods that are making you intolerant to carbohydrates and make you tolerant again by reducing the size of that lipid droplet that is causing insulin resistance. And the way to do it is through, believe it or not, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. But it's hard for people to get over that mental block that all carbohydrates are raising my blood glucose. So this is something that we tell people that join our program, and we mention it in our book. At first, since you are insulin resistant, carbohydrates will spike you up beyond normal levels. That's a completely normal response. But you're going to see that over the weeks, as your insulin sensitivity increases, you are going to become tolerant to carbohydrates again. You're going to eat that banana with no problem, that apple with no problem, the whole grains with no problem. And that is what people tell us. Like, thank you for telling me that I can do this and I can enjoy fruits again. I can enjoy these carbohydrates again. So we have to make that distinction between the bad, the refined carbohydrates, and the good, the whole complex carbohydrates.